Mom, do you want to start
Mom.
us off with a prayer?
Yeah. God, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for bringing us together. Thank you for putting it on our hearts to read your word and to study it and to seek your understanding on how we're supposed to interpret it. Thank you, God, for guiding our thoughts and for guiding our study. Thank you for bringing us together. And we pray, Father, that your will be done in and through each of us as we read through this and try to understand your word. In Jesus Christ's precious name I pray. Amen.
In chapter 10, we talked about Nimrod, and they basically idolized him, and this is kind of shown in chapter 11. It kind of dives into that deeper with them building the tower and wanting it to reach God, and it just shows that they're idolizing these things and their desire to self-govern, and that's why they have more land than Shem or Japheth, because their desire is to kind of take over, do their own thing, essentially. And it ties back into the very first chapters, Genesis 1-3, where Eve eats from the tree. She essentially wanted the same autonomy. She wanted to self-govern, and it kind of ties back into that desire of, humankind wants to we have free will. We want to do our own thing.
So getting into chapter 11, what note did you have on it?
They're almost like idolizing this guy, right?
Right.
And that's
I had those thoughts.
Yeah.
Which is like
That's
the
true.
downfall of that city, and kind of what chapter 11 is talking about. These
and it
builders
just kind of sets up their values, right? Like, this is the values of the descendants of Ham. They idolize people over God.
Well, yeah, and their like desire for autonomy, so like self-governing, which also goes back to, Genesis chapters 1-3, when, Eve decided to self-govern as well and eat the fruit, and it kind of like ties back into that as well. And they're idolizing these places and these things, and they want more land, and I think that's
they're using
why
their free will as an excuse to stray from God.
And that's why they have all of this land, right? Shem and Japheth is not as large, but that's because they're not looking to expand their ideology. Like, they're
Shem
not
was
worshiping.
spiritually prosperous, and Japheth took the seafaring land that he was blessed with.
Right. And that was enough for them. God gave that to them, and that was enough, and they focused on what they had and focused on their values versus.
And that's an important lesson too, right? To focus on what you have instead of what you could have.
More is not better.
Right.
Right? Like, more is not better necessarily.
Not always.
And that's why it's confusing. I think that's why God says they're confused, because I think they meant well. Like, I think they were trying to do the things like we've previously talked about, how people interpret what God wants us to do differently, and I think they got hung up in that, and they wanted to reach God, and they kind of viewed
well, I would argue against that, because it says in 11:4, it says, "Then they said, 'Come, let's build a great city for ourselves with a tower that reaches into the sky.'" So the important part there is that they're not building it for God. They're not building it because of God. They're not building it in ministry of God. They're saying, let's build it for ourselves. And then the
on
second
top
half,
of that, be closer to God. Like, they're on the same. They're trying to be on the same level as God in that sense, and make their own decisions and have the same sort of power and dictation. So you're right.
And the second half of 11:4 says, "This will make us famous and keep us from being scattered all over the world." So God already says to be fruitful and multiply, right? And obviously a part of that is going to be to spread across the world, right? So I think it's interesting that, and also the phrasing of it, "This will make us famous and keep
Mhm.
us from being scattered across the world. So the
Right.
emphasis here is again just back on the people.
Self yeah,
This they're not
self-serving.
interested in
That's
in
serving
making God's name
God.
higher. They're not interested in bringing him into this and having this be in worship of him. This is not the Tower of Babel is not an altar to God in any way, shape, or form. It is
Yeah,
an altar
for
to the
them.
people.
Yeah, it's almost like
So,
symbolism because they want it to
right,
reach
Yeah.
God. They want to be on the same level. They don't want to serve him. They want to be
right.
him. Yeah.
So
So
I
you
think
think
that,
that they were competing with God?
I think so a little
well, I think that
essentially.
they didn't want to follow him, I think.
They
Mm-hmm.
they had their
Well,
own they wanted to make their own decisions and govern themselves. They wanted more land. They wanted more cities. They wanted
well,
to
even when they were building things, they like mine says, "Let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens."
Oh,
Mhm.
okay. Ours is
So it's not even more; it's like bigger and greater, and like, look at me.
Yeah. Yeah, and they did it because they thought that it would make them famous, right? Like
right,
the world's gonna know we have this tower that leads into
Right.
heaven.
But who's
We
in the world? It's just your brothers, man, and your
right.
cousins, you know? So
for
you're
now.
competing against your own. Well, yeah, but I mean, all of them are related and they'll forever be related because, like,
Mhm.
all of Noah's descendants are related. It's just how it is.
Right,
Like,
but
right?
well, even that though, Ham has kind of brought shame onto himself, right? So in his bloodline, there probably is a little bit of pride in being able to be better than the other the other bloodlines to say that, oh, I did this. It wasn't Shem's family. It wasn't Japheth's family. It was us,
Right.
Ham's sons. We are
Mm-hmm.
better. We are the better of our
Right.
bloodline.
Look at our city, look at our
Right.
tower, look at
Look
what we
how
have.
prosperous.
It's
So,
interesting though because in 11:4, like the last sentence says, "This will make us famous and keep us from being scattered all over the world."
Right.
So it's
mm-hmm.
interesting too because we know God does scatter them in the upcoming verse.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost
Mm-hmm.
like they did that thinking that it would bring, instead of them going out, it would bring people to them. People would be
Right.
idolizing them. People would be idolizing their city, so much so that they were going to move from where they were to go to them.
Well, and they were
Yes.
travelers too, right? Because it says in 11:2, as the people migrated to the east, they found a plain in the land of Babylonia and settled there. So they probably were tired of traveling, right? They're like, we want to lay our roots down. We want to have this place, and we want everybody to come to us and realize like how great we are. So I think
Hmm.
that probably plays a part in it too.
Yeah.
So for me with 11:1, you don't think about it a lot, but the whole earth spoke one language, which makes sense because they were all related. But
Right. I
Right.
had
what I
that note
think is
too.
kind of crazy now is like one, the languages are still divided, like from different continents. You go to a different continent and it's like a completely different language in most cases.
Mhm.
But now our technology is so advanced that
Oh, yeah, we had this
we're kind of
discussion.
like trying to outsmart what God had put into place. Like God didn't want us all to come together and collaborate as much, which is why
Well,
he like did
Well,
the whole
well,
he
he
didn't
did,
want us to
but for the
collaborate for our
right
own self.
reasons.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. He didn't want
For
it
the
to
right
be a
M and
self-serving collaboration.
I called M on this. I called her and I was like, "This does not make sense to me. Like, why would God?" This goes obviously a little
Yeah.
later, verse
8.
5, and
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
where he scatters them. I was like, why would God scatter them and, change their language? Wouldn't he want them to have the same language so they can continue to teach? And
Well, and he did because they did up until
right,
this point.
right, but I had not at that time quite realized the symbolism in them building the tower
Yeah,
and
this is just kind of a side note. This isn't serious at all, but I think it's funny that we call it like babbling when babies are talking.
oh,
because
Yeah,
it's
these
kind
are
of
just
like
kind of like
if you
nonsense. You don't
if you take it
understand. That's
literally,
so funny.
it's almost like they're speaking a different language and it is a real language, but we just don't understand it, right? Because that's what happened.
Yeah,
They
Mm-hmm.
call it the Tower of Babel because all of a sudden they couldn't understand each other. So it's a little bit
that
funny
is
if you take
funny.
it literally to think about like how we call it babbling when babies talk.
That is interesting. And my other note on 11:5 was kind of more of a question. Did God recognize their behavior as them plotting against him to try to make themselves gods? Did God seek to protect them from their own evil plots by confusing the language and interrupting their plan?
What I took from that is that, so in verse 5, the Lord came down to look at the city and the tower the people were building. Look, the people are united. They all speak the same language. After this, nothing they set out to do will be impossible for them. Come, let's go and confuse the people with different languages. Then they won't be able to understand each other. And that was confusing to me initially. But after rereading it again, he can tell. I think God
Well, he
saw that
knows
they
our
were
hearts.
idolizing. Yeah, God saw that they were idolizing this tower and they were using it for their own self-serving reasons to be famous and to draw people to them and look what I did. But that's not what worshiping the God looks like. It's being selfless and sacrifice and devoting to the Lord. And the
Mhm.
reason why he changed the language is to make it difficult for them to spread their ideologies, right? About
Mhm.
idolizing
Right. Well,
different things
it goes
other
back a
than
little bit.
God.
So, um 11:7, like confusing them, it kind of goes back to when God wiped the earth, right? He said even though they are like corrupt and all of their thoughts are corrupt and evil from childhood, like I won't wipe them again, right? But that kind of stuff
Mhm.
kind of goes back because he's confusing them. He knew that we were corrupt and evil, like in our thoughts and stuff, but he still let us all speak the same language. Like he was giving us a chance to not indulge these thoughts, right? But now he's seeing that we're starting to idolize and we're not staying true to God and we're not walking with him. And he's like, okay, you guys
And
can't be
wanting to
trusted with it
actively,
anymore. You
yeah.
guys can't
And
be
like,
trusted with just complete communication because first it's idolizing things and people, but what next? You
Mhm.
know?
right, and they're actively wanting to spread their own ideas and their
Exactly.
own
And
thoughts.
building temples for themselves, right? Like the
Essentially, yeah.
Babel building, like all the way up into the heavens, they described it. So they
Yeah.
were obviously very proud of it, but it wasn't in the name of God.
Yeah. Well, God didn't
Yeah.
even let them finish building it.
I underlined that section that you were talking about, Adria, in 11:6. Yeah, it's interesting that it says that with them all have one language, and this is what they begin to do. Now, nothing they propose to do will be withheld. They're all coming together, and nothing will be withheld from them. It just kind of goes to show that, like, you've got like all the people, nothing will be withheld from them. So I don't know if it's kind of like the whole thing, like we've mentioned in the past, when two or more come together and pray, kind of thing. I don't know if that's it. We know that Ham's heart is not right and like their thought process is not right. So I think you're right. And that God did this to interrupt them spreading their own religion and making their
Yeah.
own gods and this.
Yeah. He didn't want them to spread like the idea of idolizing people and places and things and land. And he
Yeah.
was disrupting that. He didn't want that to spread. That was like his way of trying to disrupt what they were doing.
I think Adri already made this point in 11:9. God made their worst fear come true and he scattered them abroad anyways. So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
just like, you think that you're
Well,
trying to
he didn't
outsmart
even
God by like perverting his truth or whatever, and
Mhm.
he said, yeah, right.
Yeah, because I think they wanted to be famous, right? They say that they
Hmm.
wanted to draw people to them. So
They
I
wanted
think,
to be the greater of the sons, right? The greater of the population, like they want it, like they have this
Well,
pride, like look at me,
this is
here I
a
am.
little
Mhm.
off topic, but it puts an interesting perspective on like modern day, how we have like pop stars and movie stars and we do like the Grammy Awards and it's all a battle of who's the better person. How
Yeah.
popular is
Hmm.
this person? How much better is this person's song? How much better of an
Hmm.
actor was this person? And it's interesting because it's kind of like the Tower of Babel, right? It's just idolizing people and their actions and what they did. And
Right.
this kind of puts an interesting perspective on it, right? Because you're not supposed to be indulging in these things, right? He scatters them for indulging in these things. He
Right.
confuses them.
To like break up their ideas and that sort of thing. And it's a very fine line too from like idolizing someone versus, appreciating them or
Yeah.
acknowledging what they've done. Like there's a difference, but it is a little bit of a fine line
Yeah,
where
for sure.
it can become to the point where you're idolizing someone or something and you're not even realizing it.
I know, because it's so sneaky the way that it happens, right? Like it doesn't happen. It's not just like this in your face. It's just these little compromises that you make all the time that you're
Mhm.
making on a unconscious, like a lot of times it's unconscious that you're making on a subconscious level. Like you're not mindful that you're doing these things, but you're doing them. And like the best example of that is sometimes when you get into a new relationship, you used to have your time spread out between friends and
Oh,
work and all these different things, and then you get into this relationship and everything becomes this, like everything works itself around the relationship versus the relationship just kind of enhancing that part of your life, so to
right.
speak, kind of thing. So but
Yeah. It's
it's
a
easy to,
distraction from
yeah,
worshiping the
Yeah.
Lord,
it
really
is.
is what it
It
is.
is. That's like one of the things in like the whole CODA program, and like part of the codependent like behaviors is that they're constantly putting people and things as their God, and they put all of this trust and all this faith into these people, and then they like with me, I still believe in God. I've always believed in God. Like that's never like shifted for me, but
Mhm.
even though I believed in God, I did still make these, like not knowingly, like I didn't intentionally make other people my God, but that is what I did. And like an example of that is like when someone is able to emotionally control you, when your like attitude and your personality and like your moods are based on whether this person did or didn't do something and all these kinds of things. One, like it's like the shifting between controlling and being controlled,
Mhm.
like
You're
when
giving.
you're codependent, you're like giving, giving, giving to this
Yeah.
one person, or, usually to one person, like all the time. And
Yeah.
you're not allowing yourself to continue to put God first because this other person has like these demands on you and you're too worried to not
You're,
feel
you're
them or what have you.
yeah, you're giving them the power to kind
You're
of
giving them,
live your life versus giving the power to God and allowing him to dictate your
yeah,
life.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a slippery slope, but it's not so in your face. It's like one of those things that kind of sneaks up on you,
Yeah.
It's a little here, a little there. But
Mhm.
anyways, that was all my notes from that first part, and then my next note
Uh,
goes to 11:26. So I'll back off
I
until you
have
guys get there.
yeah, I have something before that. My soonest note after that is 11:24.
11:8, just to go back into that just a little bit.
Okay.
In the way the Lord scattered them all over the world and they stopped building the city. This also kind of ties back into the beginning with Adam and Eve and even Cain, like they disobeyed God and he punished them by banishing them
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
and dispersing them. So it's
Mm,
interesting that there's like this pattern, when you kind of don't obey, you're being banished, you're being sent off and dispersed, which is kind of interesting how a lot of that
Yeah.
stuff still ties back to
Well,
the very first few chapters.
it's a good
you're being
punishment,
taken
right?
out of your
Because
Yeah,
comfort.
well, it's a
yeah,
good punishment because you kind of are who you surround yourself with, right? So if you're not being obedient, if you're not being God-fearing, if you're not like that, then
mhm,
why would he give you the opportunity to corrupt all the people around you who are?
yeah. And then 11:10, Shem's son is Abram. He's basically the last person from Babel's confused world. This is a note that I got from the app. And God called him as an act of grace whereby the fractured world of Babel would be blessed.
I didn't think of Shem as being in Babel. I don't know why.
Shem was by the Dead Sea. They were in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, so that's what I thought too. So it's
Interesting.
interesting on your thought or your thing that you got, Adri, because I didn't think of Shem as being in Babel. I thought of him being away from it, but again, that might be I don't understand maps that well. So
I got this from the app because I don't think that he was, but I guess it does say Shem's family, and it's weird because I have 11:10.
my 11:10 says this is the genealogy of Shem. Shem was 100 years old.
So actually, in 1131, it says that they moved away from Ur,
Which is in Babylonia. It's at
which
the
is
bottom.
which is east of Babylon. Yeah.
Okay, so they all kind of integrated with each other. That's probably part of the whole breaking up the languages and stuff too, I'm sure.
Okay.
I
So 1124 says when Nahor was 29 years old, he became the father of Terah, who is Abram's father. And then 25, after the birth of Terah, Nahor lived another 119 years, and he had other sons and daughters. So this is the closest anyone's ever been to that 120-year mark that he said in
That's
6:3
true.
was going to be 120 years
like
old.
where their life is starting to
Yeah,
decrease. I see what you're saying.
this is the closest they've ever been. So they're like right there. And then I think Terah, he was 70, and then he lived longer actually than his father, Nahor. Because
Yes.
he was 70 and then lived another 205 years. So this
Yes.
war is the closest any of them have ever been to that benchmark that God set
That
was going to
shorter
be the new.
lifespan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. From 26, one of the things that I got that I think that you guys already kind of touched on anyways is from Shem's bloodline, which is Noah's oldest son, was Abram. And then Abram becomes Abraham, the father of many nations, which is the father of Israel, which is the promised people.
What does that mean? He becomes Abraham, like he changes his name or what?
God changes Abraham's name to be the father of many nations.
Are you saying
Abraham is
Abraham is the same person as Abraham?
Abram and Abraham are the same people. Yes.
Are the
Abram
same
is
people like as
the
a
same person. No, the
okay.
same person.
Okay. All
So
right.
Abram is his birth name, but Abraham becomes his God-given name.
Oh, okay. So in 1128 it says, but Haran died in Ur of the Chaldeans, the land of his birth, while his father Terah was still living. So they make note that he died prematurely. And then going
Yes.
into 1129, it says, meanwhile, Abram and Nahor, the other brothers still living, both married. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. And Milcah and her sister Ishka were both daughters of Nahor's brother Haran. I had the wonder if Nahor would have married Milcah if his brother had still been alive, right? Because that's his niece. So I wonder if that would have even happened if Haran hadn't died prematurely.
Well, and I think Sarai is also related to.
No. No, there was another sister involved, but it wasn't Sarai. Only note that they have on Sarai is that she was unable to become pregnant. So into 1131, it says, one day Terah took his son Abram, his daughter-in-law Sarai, his son Abram's wife, and his grandson Lot, Haran's son, and moved away from Ur of the Chaldeans. He was headed for the land of Canaan, but they stopped in Haran and settled there. So my note on that is that they left Nahor and Milcah in Ur. They didn't take them with them. So they took all of the family except for them.
I
Left
had
Milcah
like
and
a little thought on that. So I wonder if like because Haran being Terah's son had died and it sounded like you said it was an unexpected death. I wonder if like Terah was still mourning Haran and like their intention was to go to Canaan, but like his heart was just too heavy from the passing and his sons
well,
Abraham
I'm not
and Lot went with them because they too were like mourning. him, and that's why they ended up in Haran, which is where Terah passed.
Well,
Whatever.
but that's not my question, though. My question is why they left part of their family, because even if that is the case, Milcah was Haran's daughter, so she would be mourning his death too. So I just
Well,
wonder why they would
maybe
leave them.
maybe it has something to do because I kind of touched on it in that app note, and you can see chapter 12 is called the call of Abram. And
Right. Well,
maybe,
I read chapter 12, though, and it doesn't touch on why they left them.
well, in that note, it's saying that like God called on Abram and wanted to
But
like remove him from
not until
Babylonia
that
to
point,
be,
Mm.
well,
is my
but
point.
they left, but they still
But
left. So I'm wondering if that was
Terah
like,
didn't have a call to leave. Right, he just left. So my question is, he didn't have a call to leave, so he wasn't instructed who to take. And he
yeah.
left, and he didn't take his granddaughter, and he didn't take his other son.
Well, actually, where I got that, so 1131, it says Terah took. The text is clear that Abram's departure from Ur was prompted by God's calling, and then it says see study note 1128, which the call of Abram occurred in the Ur of Chaldeans. But that kind of goes into a different chapter.
Yeah, it's not clear at all here that he was called
No,
by
it's
God to
not.
leave.
And then it says the family had moved there perhaps generations before the call. Their ancestral home was apparently near Haran in the region of the descendants of Shem. Thus they settled there when they left Ur and were later described as the Arameans.
I feel like the fact that they mentioned that Haran had passed, and then Terah ends up passing in Haran. Well, one, Haran's like a city to be, like an area to be named after Haran is interesting because that's his son that passed name. But then
Well,
Terah ends
he
up
might have been
dying
named
there
after the
too.
city.
And then,
Mm.
so in this note, I don't know if it quite makes sense. It says, right, how it was God's calling, but the event is described from Terah's perspective, in keeping with the patriarchy of ancient Near Eastern culture. This culture deference to the oldest male is evidently why Abraham did not continue on to Canaan by himself at this time.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know on that.
I don't know if you.
I don't know either, but
It's an
that is
It's not
interesting
very
thought,
clear.
but that's how these things go.
think like why, like, right, why did they get left behind? Did they get left behind or did they choose to stay?
Right,
And
but that's what
Yeah.
why?
I'm saying is just none of it's
Yeah,
clear. They just don't
no,
they don't elaborate
Yeah.
on it at all.
which is
Yeah.
interesting.
Is that what
Well,
I would
for
have said?
anyone watching,
That's right.
if you have any input or
If
ideas,
you know
we
something
would
we
love to
don't,
hear. Yeah,
if
Indeed.
if
God's
there's a
whispering it in
connection
your
we might
ear,
be
letting you know.
missing, yeah,
True.
leave it in
Yeah.
the comments. That's funny. It's interesting. It just feels like God is so intentional that there has to be some sort of reason, but maybe there's
Exactly.
really
That's
not anything
True.
there. But it's hard not to look into it and like think
yeah,
about it because he is so intentional.
right. It's
Maybe
hard
we'll
just
find
not to
out
think,
later.
why would you do that, God?
Yeah. And I was thinking maybe it had something to do with their infertility, but Sarai was also not able to have
Yeah.
children.
In fact, it doesn't even say that
So,
Milcah was infertile. I had the thought, I was like, maybe it was because he married his niece, like maybe that was not um but then you kind of
but
went
at
ahead a little
that
bit and said that
time,
Abram married his half sister. So it's like
I
clearly we're
think at that,
not we're not worried
well, and
about
if you
that.
think about it, like God
There are
sent
not many
one
options.
family to
Yeah.
start the world over. So I
There's
don't
not a
think
lot of
that,
options.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think that it was quite looked at as the same as we look at it
No,
now.
I don't think that Abraham married his sister. I think that there's a part in the Bible where Abraham told Sarah to say
The-
he was her sister so
I
that
think
she didn't get So that
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't
that's
know, it's
chapter 12.
I
confusing right
think
now,
what
but
it's saying is it
That's chapter
might have
12.
hinted as that because they don't know where her they don't know her
Well,
genealogy, and that
actually,
later
though,
it like
the
kind of
fact that
hints.
he had to say that, because to jump a little bit ahead, because I did read through chapter 12 already, he tells they travel to Egypt, and he tells Sarai outside the walls of Egypt. He
mhm.
says, "You're so beautiful, and they're going to want to kill me so they can be with you. Can you tell them that you're
Yes,
my
that's
sister?"
what I was
So the
trying to
fact
remember.
the fact that he has to tell her to say that kind of makes me feel like maybe they're not related,
Yeah,
But
because
maybe they didn't
that's where I
know
was going with
well,
it.
but
because it
because
says half sister. It says half sister, not sister. So maybe
how do you even have a
they
half
don't
sister when
know.
your only family is
That's what I
Right?
mean. They're
Yeah, that's
all
a good
how do you
point
related
even have
to
because
a half sister? There's only one
Abram's
family.
Abram's father is who? Ham?
Tara, Tara,
Terah.
who is
and
Ham's.
Tara
Oh no, is
is
Seth's
the child of.
or Shem. Sorry, yeah,
I don't know, man. And then
There
we'll
you go.
read chapters 12, 13, 14 then.
yeah. I think that's
Yeah.
good. It's like 3 pages, so that's not too bad. Very
Okay.
doable. Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay.
12, 13, 14.
Um,
Okay.
good. All
Sounds good. Cool
right.
Okay.
beans. Well, thank you guys. Love you.
Love you guys.
Love you
Bye.
guys.
Bye.